Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of live career webinars brought to you by the HOP platform. That is Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. This is a website and a series of social media channels and handles that we hope that all young people and schools in Hertfordshire and surrounding areas are aware of and using as a fantastic careers resource. Now, the highlight of our Hot Weeks are these webinars. So these webinars give you the opportunity to hear from experts from a particular industry that you may well be interested in pursuing as your future career. And this week's one is a very exciting one. We've had huge levels of interest in people registering for this one. We are going to talk today about careers in television production. So that is essentially when you watch a television show, that is everything that happens behind the camera. So everything that gets put in place for those things to happen when you're watching a live production or a show on the television, you are going to hear from some real experts in that field today. So a little bit of housekeeping for you before I hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves. This is a live webinar, so we're producing this live 4:30 on a Thursday. So firstly, for any of you that have come home from school or college that have logged into this webinar, well done. I think this is a fantastic use of your time to come home from school and to proactively explore a future career option. So to make the most of this opportunity, what I recommend you do is stay on the webinar until we finish. So it is being recorded. If you can't stay until the end of it, and it will take us up to about 5:30, it is being recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel from tomorrow onwards, as well as all the previous webinars that we've recorded over the last couple of years. The other thing that I would recommend for you to do is to ask some questions. So some of you, when you registered, submitted some questions or things that you want to know that we've tried to incorporate into the main part of the webinar today. But anything that you want to ask our panelists, or perhaps any general observations you've got that opportunity to interact with us. The way that you do that is on your dashboard, you've got a questions tab. If you open that questions tab out, you'll see a text box. You can type your question into that text box. It will only be visible to me, and then I will pass that over to whichever of our panelists. So if you want anyone in particular to answer it, put their name at the start of it and I'll direct it to them. But really recommend you use that opportunity to ask them anything that you want to know or you want them to elaborate a little bit further on. So without any further ado from me, I am going to hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So in order that I've listed them there, good afternoon, David Gold. Thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about you, David.
Good afternoon. I'm David Gold. I'm a floor manager in television. I work on live and pre-recorded programs and events covering all forms of television broadcast. Started work at the BBC many years ago in 1977 and worked my way up to being a floor manager after about 4 years of being there and getting my foot in the door. I left in 2000 to become freelance, which is the way most television works these days. And I also run a company where I supply floor managers to various broadcasts and live events.
Thank you, David. And David, we've been talking about getting you onto this webinar for quite a while, aren't we? And Thursdays are usually a problem for you. So tell everybody what's your regular Thursday slot that you're working on?
On Thursday evening, I work on a program called Question Time, which travels about the country. It now goes out live at 8 o'clock on the BBC iPlayer, but it also goes on terrestrial television at 10:40. So it's recorded as live, usually with a presenter, Fiona Bruce, and up to 5 live panelists in the studio, and an audience of between 100 and 250 people, depending on the size of the venue and the people who are interested in that week's news and current affairs topics. But a lot of my work, as I say, I do that regularly, but a lot of my work is in the sports field.
Sure, and well, I'm going to touch on that as well, David, because some eagle-eyed observers after today may well find that they spot you in various dugout areas and touchlines and tunnels of Premier League stadiums. Now that I know who you are, I see you quite regularly. So what do you do at live football matches?
Well, the job of a floor manager is different depending what job you're working on. As I say, on Question Time, for example, I work with the panel, with the presenter, with the production team, looking after the audience. I warm up the audience before the program starts. If we have any high profile guests who need security, I deal with their security people. At a football match, for example, it's totally different. I'm standing in the tunnel, so that's where you'll usually see me, near the fourth official, passing information back to a producer who is not on site and to a commentator who is not on site, giving them all the information, because they're watching the match, what they call off tube, so they're not live at the stadium. They are in a little room somewhere, as I am now, looking at one TV screen, as I am now, and possibly missing everything else that's going on around them. So I'm keeping them informed of substitutions, of bookings, of what's happening, if someone's injured, what the injury is. And when a commentator tells you exactly what's going on, it's usually because the floor manager has passed it on to them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure someone will explore that a little bit further, David. I imagine there were some questions. Let me introduce as well Anthony Brown. Anthony, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, as Gareth said, my name is Anthony Brown and I work for the BBC. My part of the BBC is called BBC Studio Works. We've got studios around the country that we hire out to people to make their programmes. Anton Deck, Jonathan Ross, Graham Norton, EastEnders, a whole host of and Strictly Come Dancing that we do at Elstree Film Studios. We've got lots of studios that we make lots of programmes in a year. I've been a sound supervisor on EastEnders for the last 15 years or so, still working as that, but I have a new role called Creative Diversity Partner, and that's engaging with people like you to try and get you into this industry, if I possibly can. So that's my passion at the moment, to try and do interventions with schools and colleges for mainly for EastEnders, I hasten to add, but also for other broadcasts as well. We've got a new studio that's opened up in Glasgow, so we're getting going there in Glasgow with a local school and a couple of colleges. But it's Hertfordshire where our main base is, EastEnders, and that's where we're mainly working with Elstree Screen Arts and a couple of others.
Sure. Okay. And as you said, Anthony, I mean, very Hertfordshire centric this webinar today, just because of the amount of studios that we have within county. Just tell everyone who may not be familiar with the geography, where in Hertfordshire is the EastEnders set?
So the EastEnders set is at BBC Elstree, and if you know Borehamwood High Street, it's very close to McDonald's. So if you go down the road to the left of McDonald's in Borehamwood High Street, that's where BBC Elstree is. And Albert Square, which is the outside area of EastEnders, is on that site. And also EastEnders occupies 6 big studios. So EastEnders filming all the time, it takes 10 days to record 4 episodes, 10 days. So that means we always have 2 teams filming, and very often we have 3 or 4 teams filming. So all soap operas are really busy, labour intensive, lots of people, lots of kits, and lots of problems.
For sure. Okay. And then, well, very, very close to the EastEnders set is where Lauren Christie is at the moment. So Lauren, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Lauren Christie and I work at Sky Studios Elstree, and I'm a talent manager, and that means my role is really focused on supporting young people into the industry and making sure that there are opportunities for them, and building programs. Essentially, we're not quite built yet. In fact, you can see a little corner just behind me of part of a studio stage, some of our sound stages, and there's 13 sound stages here, and we're on quite a large site. It's about the size of 17 football pitches, so it's quite big, and we are a brand new film and television studio, and really we are more aimed at high-end television. So we're looking kind of some of the big streamers and you know, some of the big kind of high-end TV series, and some multi-billion-dollar films, and we've currently got one on site, which is very exciting. So yeah, so that's what I do and a little bit where we are. And like Gareth has said, we are in Elstree and Borehamwood, and we are just at the bottom of the A1. So if you drive down the A1, you'll see these big grey boxes. That's us.
Yes, and that's opposite, is it Dino Land or the Dino Golf on the other side of the A1? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And then we've got the Doubletree Hilton Hotel just literally next door to us. So yeah, really exciting.
Sure. So if you haven't worked out already, Hertfordshire is a really exciting place for the TV and film industry at the moment. In fact, we predict that by the end of this decade, there'll actually be more stages in Hertfordshire than there will in Hollywood. So if this is an industry you're interested in getting into, it's a really great time to be starting to think about that right now. So there's a couple of questions that have come in already. So David, you're going to be busy by the looks of it, because a couple of them are for you. I will come on to all of those questions, so do keep submitting them. There's a couple of ones that we just want to go through first of all as general discussion points, which may cover those. So I guess we've covered them already. Laura, I'm going to come to you to answer this one, I think, sort of fairly generally. And that's, what are the different roles within TV production? I think when I think about this question, I think at the end of a TV programme, whether it's EastEnders or whether it's Question Time, you get all the credit. So first of all, you see who the actors are or the presenters are or the panelists, but then it just seems to go on for a good 30 seconds or so of lists of jobs and people who do jobs. So tell us, I'll try and summarise some of those roles that are involved in the production of a TV show.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you probably know, there's so many people involved in the production of TV, even more in film, but yeah, definitely in TV. There's all these kind of different departments and roles that you may not have heard of, and you sometimes when you look at these credits, you think, what is that job? And you've got best boy and grip and the technical roles. So yeah, usually there's various different departments. So the technical roles, like I just sort of said, technical department might include things like camera, lighting, sound, grip, which is essentially anything that you put a camera on, so tripods, cranes, big dollies. Then we've got the craft department, so that's very much focused on set, prop, costume, hair and makeup, a lot of the design and construction, essentially to do with the look of the TV programme. And then we've got production departments, so they're very much focused on the management of the show. You've got accountancy and finance departments. Every single film and TV show has to have somebody looking after the pennies. So yeah, a huge variety, a huge amount of different roles in different departments. So what's great is there's lots of opportunity out there.
Absolutely. So I guess if there's any particular role that you're aware of, or perhaps you don't know what it is, if you want to ask that, we'll try our best to answer that one. David, let me come to you and specifically thinking about your role as a floor manager. What's the most enjoyable aspects of being a floor manager, and perhaps what's the challenging side of it?
The most enjoyable part, as far as I'm concerned, is meeting people. You get to meet the most fascinating people. I've worked as a floor manager for 40 years, it'll be this year. My background was news and current affairs. I then moved, when I went freelance, to sport and other genre. But the interesting thing is meeting different people, and from a freelance point of view, it's working on different things every day. So one day I may be working, as I say, on a Thursday on Question Time. On a Friday, I may do a live event, which isn't broadcast. So a launch of, in the past, I've done a launch of pharmaceutical items. You get to meet the most fascinating, interesting people that I don't think you'd ever get to meet in other walks of life, from actors, actresses, sports people, royalty. It's just the difference between each thing I find really enjoyable.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose the challenges, particularly the live event, maybe.
Challenges are the people that you meet. You can have the most adorable people. You can have people who are prima donnas, which I won't mention any names at all, but you can. You'll know that from, you'll know that from Spurs, where you are, Gareth. You can get footballers who are absolutely fantastic and think you're one of them, and others who think they're above everybody else. Well, that goes for every walk of life. So the challenging thing, I think, is remembering who you are, what you do, and who these people are. And though maybe sometimes having to be firm, always being polite, never rude, whatever kind, like any job, whatever kind of mood you're in when you go to work, not taking it to work with you, because you are dealing with some people who are great when they do their everyday job. You know, even a politician, wonderful when they do their job sometimes, but put them in front of a TV camera, put them in front of an audience of 250 members of the public, and they get nervous the same as the rest of us do. So it's looking after them. That can be a challenge sometimes, and just knowing how to react to people and how to take people.
Yeah. Okay, good answer. Anthony, thinking back to when you had your role within, I suppose, the sound team, which from Lauren's description is part of that technical team there. Just describe to me what would people find particularly enjoyable about some of those technical roles on a TV set, and again, what might be challenging?
As David said, meeting people is lovely. I'm very lucky in my time. I've met most famous people, most rock bands, most singers, most actors. I'm very lucky from that point of view, as David's already said. On EastEnders, the scripts get written somehow by other people away from the studio, and then the director comes on board, and the director has to turn the words into pictures and sounds, basically. So there's a planning meeting when all the roles that Lauren described all sit together in a room, or it's done on Zoom in this technology form at the moment. And we discuss each shot, each scene. On EastEnders, there's roughly 30 scenes in a half-hour episode, so that's 120 scenes. I've already said in 10 days. So in other words, that's about 10 or 12 scenes a day. Some are a bit longer, some are a bit shorter. And you discuss everything, absolutely everything. And a lot of you would have done shoots through school and college. Discuss everything before you get there. Don't get there with the camera and the weather and it's just started raining and start discussing what you need to do. But we discuss everything beforehand. It often changes, but it's good to discuss. So it's teamwork, but it's really enjoyable. But the hours can be long. And you have to respect that the hours can be quite long.
Yeah. Okay. And Lauren, from some of the work that you've done in industry as well, what were some of the more enjoyable roles that you've either done or had exposure to?
Yeah, so in my previous role, I actually was a teacher and developed a traineeship for young people. So the bit that I love about my role and in my previous roles is kind of inspiring, hopefully, young people to go into this industry and giving them their kind of first step in. I think it can be a really difficult industry to get into if you don't quite know where to go or what to look for, or even kind of what role or what department to look for. And it's notoriously difficult to get kind of work experience in. So part of my role now and my previous roles was about giving young people that first step. So I absolutely love kind of seeing a couple of years later when they're now production secretaries or they're now grips and they've been in the industry for a couple of years and they're now helping other young people to get in. So that's the bit that I kind of take away and that I love.
Yeah. And Lauren, what are maybe some of the more common misconceptions that young people have about the industry, particularly when you were teaching them?
Oh goodness, yeah, the sort of myth busting, I guess. I guess sort of one of the biggest things is how a studio lot works. So often I get lots of emails, which I really, really love from young people to sort of say, can you give me work experience? And it's a bit heartbreaking when I sort of have to say, I'm really sorry, I can't. And that's due to a couple of reasons. There's a bit of an insurance kind of regulation in the industry, which means that generally people under 18 can't really go on set behind the scenes, just due to various insurance regulations. You can do extra work, so you can do things in front of the camera a bit younger, so that's a great way to get in. But yeah, behind the scenes is much harder. And then also we have lots of confidentiality agreements with our clients and with production companies, which mean it is difficult, I think, to get access to studios. And then also how a studio lot works. At Sky we own the studio. And we rent out the space. It's a bit like a hotel. You kind of rent out the space, and then productions companies come on site and then they hire however they hire. So I don't have any direct, I mean, I'd love to be able to, but I don't have any direct influence on who the production company hires. I try my best to, particularly at Sky, we're really interested in hiring local diverse talent, so we will get there definitely with kind of more influence on production, but it is sometimes very difficult. So yeah, there's some of the myths.
Oh, okay. David, I'm quite keen to explore your role as a floor manager. So on the first, and you're not doing question time tonight because you wanted to come here on this webinar instead, I know. But could you just talk me through what would your day be? So if you were doing question time tonight, which I think you said up in the northwest, what would your day look like from the moment you get up to the moment you get to bed?
So depending where it is, I would travel there on the day. And as I say, it can be anywhere. Last week it was in London, this week it's in Warrington, next week we're in Newcastle under Lyme. The main problem is getting there and getting there on time. I would travel up on the day. When I get there, I would go into the studio, have a look round, check that everything's going well in there, though that isn't technically my responsibility. As floor manager, I am still responsible for health and safety. So I would check that there was nothing being rigged that may be dangerous, that any areas that people, the public, because don't forget we have an audience of members of the public. So any members of the public coming in, that it's safe for them, that they've got a safe route in and out. If there was an emergency, that we could evacuate people well and where we would evacuate them to. I would then have discussions with the production team, the editor, the presenter, producers, as to which members of the panel are sitting where. Then any kind of problems that may occur, just being there, making sure that I can cover them or that they can be covered. If, as I say, we have a high profile person there, which we sometimes do, if they have their own security, I liaise with them, I show them around the studio where the guest will be sitting. Again, any routes that might be able to be used if we needed to evacuate them in an emergency, where their security people can be, because obviously we don't want them sitting in view. The only people who are supposed to be in view at something like question time are the members of the audience who have been vetted. So there's a cross section of the population, different politics, different people from all different backgrounds. So to have an armed police officer sitting in the audience could be a problem. So I would find somewhere for them to sit to one side. Though if we had some awkward guests, it might be nice to have an armed police officer there who could deal with them for me, which they have offered at times. Then before the programme goes on air, I take the presenter, Fiona Bruce, through to meet the members of the audience, and she has a chat with them. After that, take the audience in to the studio area, explain to them all the health and safety issues, what they must do, any housekeeping, and then I ask them questions and get them to ask me questions, so that the people, the sound people, who there are 4 of them around the audience, and you may see, if you see question time, people from the audience are asking the questions, obviously. So the sound operatives have to rehearse how to get the mics into the people. So we have maybe half an hour of rehearsals of that. I have a couple of stock questions that aren't going to be used on the night. I'm one of the only people that actually knows what the questions will be on the night. The panel don't know, the audience don't know, but so that I don't ask the same question. These days I ask about people using mobile phones in schools, which is very interesting, especially when you've got either students or teachers in the audience, but they always pick up on that. Also potholes. It's amazing how many people want to speak about potholes in their area. Once we've done that for about half an hour, get the panel in, and at 8 o'clock we go live, as I say, on the iPlayer. We record for an hour and that goes out as live at 10:40. I then go home or back to a hotel, depending where we are. So I can be traveling for many hours of the day before working, get to the job, work on the program, travel home, ready to work the next morning. So that's my day in question time.
Sure, and I guess once the cameras are rolling and it's live, you have to be on hyper alert, don't you, for everything in terms of sound and
Yeah, absolutely. We've had people taken ill in the audience. We've had people, should we say, get a little bit strop in the audience. We
Yeah.
do have security standing by, but it's not something that you want to happen. You know, we had someone, I won't say where and I won't say when, but we had someone on a program quite recently who was getting a little bit irate because Fiona wasn't coming to them to ask their question. So we had security standing by, and when we got to a point where the camera wasn't on this person, I crawled into the audience and very nicely asked them to calm down a little bit, which thankfully they did. But you have to be watching the audience the whole time because you never know. You know, as I say, it's a cross section. You have people of all ages there. Someone can be taken ill. We had someone a couple of months ago who we thought had a heart attack in the audience. How do they tell you? So as the floor manager, apart from keeping an eye on the panelists and the presenter while the show's going on, I also keep the other eye on the audience to make sure everything's good there.
Sure. Okay. Anthony, so I mean, David's just described that sort of live production there. Now, EastEnders, I know very occasionally there might be a live showing of it, but describe for me some of the technical stuff. What might their day? You've alluded to the fact it's likely to be a very long day on a day when there's scenes being shot.
Yeah, so EastEnders, a typical day, we would start at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have 15 minutes setup time. 15 minutes isn't much when you're M25, transport dependent, 10 minutes from the railway station, that kind of thing. So 15 minutes setup, and we're ready to go on camera with 4 cameras at 8:15. The artists walk on set at 8:15, shortly afterwards, and they've already been made up in costumes. So the first costume call could be 6:30 EastEnders in the morning to get people ready. They walk on set, they walk through the words, the script that's been written by somebody else with the director, discuss what they're going to do. We then move the cameras around, get the cameras in the right place, rehearse it a few times, record it a few times, and move on. And we try and keep to the schedule as much as we possibly can. And in sound, in television, there are 2 types of sound pickup. One where you can see the microphones, hands and deck, question time, and one where you can't, which is a drama. So in a drama, the microphone would either have to be out of shot somewhere down there or to one side or below, or a radio mic, which David's already spoken about, on the person. Now in drama, the radio mic has to be hidden under the clothing, and so you're going to get rustles. So that's tricky. On question time, the microphone can be seen. So that's one of the issues that we have as a sound person. So you have to have very good interpersonal skills, know who all the artists are, not say oi you, and that kind of thing. And EastEnders, we have to get the scene recorded to everyone's best ability and then move on to the next scene. And with EastEnders, we can't really drop a scene because obviously we're recording it for real to go out at some point in the future. We record all cameras all the time, all sound sources all the time, all microphones all the time. So it can be remixed and recut later if we wanted it to be. But we try and do a mixed version on a sound desk and a cut version at the time, and we try and use that as much as we possibly can. We have an hour for lunch on EastEnders, and then we wrap at 7. So it's an 11-hour day. And if you start late, you finish late. If you had to film outside, then we would film outside, and then you start a bit later. So the days when you start a bit later are quite nice. But they're all 11-hour days on EastEnders, as they would be for any soap opera.
Yeah, so it's a pretty full-on day, and I guess it just takes as long as it takes. That obviously you've got professionals in place to try and make sure that everything can be done as quickly as possible. But if it's raining when you don't need it to be raining because you're outside, it might prolong. Or
absolutely. So sometimes we have to delay. So a couple of weeks ago it was snowing. I think last week it was snowing, and we're so far ahead. We were doing the King's coronation party outside in the snow. And one thing on camera. Rain doesn't really show like rain, but snow certainly does. So then we had to cancel the day's filming, which is a shame. And then that has to be a pickup with that combination of artists at some point in the future. So there's a lot of roles all coming together. It's a lot of teamwork, everybody discussing, looking at the weather, that whole host of things.
Yeah, well, no, it's obviously a very big production, and you've mentioned people that would be working on costumes as well, who are perhaps getting in even earlier. Just want to move the conversation on. I want to bring Lauren in here. I think you're particularly your previous role at school, will really help here, Lauren. Lots of people watching this, a lot of people who, when they registered, said their question was, I don't know what A levels I should do, if this is something I want to get into. So, I mean, generally, what advice would you give, whether someone's choosing the GCSE subjects or what they're going to do post 16? Are there any subjects that you must have done to go into either David's role or any of the roles that Anthony's talking about?
Not really. So I guess with this industry, what is kind of great is that you sort of could have studied anything, and actually we're more interested in your passion, your skills, exactly like Anthony said, and David from what he said, that whole teamwork and collaboration and problem solving, they're kind of the biggest three skills, I guess, that we're really looking for in young people. If you have done something in media and film, that will only help you, because it will give you a good grounding and a good understanding of how the industry works, and particularly if it's something like a level 3 UAL course, or if it's something more vocational where you get a bit more practical work, that's brilliant. But even A-level film studies and A-level media, they're really good just to understand a little bit more about the industry. If you're, depending on which area of the industry you're going into, so if you're looking at accountancy, we still need accountants on film and TV shows, then you're going to need, higher maths, you're going to need A-level maths, those kind of subjects. But if you're looking for more kind of production roles, then definitely something like a media qualification would work. If you're looking at things like art direction, which is your prop making, kind of construction, set design, those kind of roles, production design, then something more in the art field might work for you. Traditional art, if that's what your school or college offers, but then also things like mixed media art or graphic design or illustration, those could all potentially lend itself to something like prop making. We are very lucky in Hertfordshire. We have actually a Screen Arts Academy, which is there's only about 4 or 5 in the country. So we're very lucky to have one in actually in Elstree and Boreham Wood, so very close to where Ant and I both work. They offer some really amazing courses, as do lots of the other colleges. So West Herts, Oaklands, North Herts and Herts Region all offer some really brilliant courses in things like level 3 media and things like illustration, graphic design. So if you are interested, then definitely have a little look at kind of what they offer. But really, my honest advice to all young people is do subjects you enjoy. You've got 2 years at least of study at level 3, either an A-level or a level 3 BTEC diploma or whatever it is. You've got 2 years, that's quite a long time, and you're going to be in school, in college studying that subject. And certainly when I was a teacher, the students who enjoyed the subjects the most often did really well. They often then got the kind of high grades because they would go off and do some incredible work. So I would do subjects you enjoy, and then use those subjects, use the skills that you've learnt and the knowledge that you've learnt to help you into a role in the industry. There are so many roles, there is so much opportunity. There will be things that fit, there will be space for you there. It's just finding what you're good at.
Sure. And then
Can I just pick up?
Anthony,
Sorry. Can I just pick up? So from Elstree Screen Arts, before Christmas, I had 10 of the students came 2 at a time over 5 weeks, and they did placements between 5 companies, spending a week with us. The better 4 out of the 10, the better 4 have now come back to us for 2 weeks. And I saw 2 of the students from Elstree Screen Arts earlier today that are coming to the end of their 2-week placement with us. And when they leave the school, we could take them on as freelance. So I'm hoping that we can take the first 2 on as freelance. They've done incredibly well. The feedback from our camera supervisors on them, the way they behaved, the way they've worked, has been fantastic. And I'm thrilled to see them grow, really thrilled.
Sure, that's good. That's good to hear. It very much builds on what Lauren was just saying. David, I know that you would employ floor managers, albeit they probably would have had a little bit more life experience, perhaps by the time you'd be taking them on. But are you looking at subjects that they studied at GCSE or A-level, or what are the things that you'd be looking for?
I would be looking for them to have just studied, not dropped out of school at 16 years old and thought, oh, I'm going to work in television, it's going to be an easy thing. It isn't like that. When I joined the BBC, as I say, which was in 1977, I didn't have very many qualifications. I left short of my A-levels, because an opportunity came up at the BBC. That kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. So I would say that anyone who has studied, anyone who has proven that they're really interested in a particular field. I had someone contact me years ago when I first started the company. She was a student at Leeds University doing media studies and broadcast and interested in getting into television, and without nagging, but contacted me probably every few months with an update of how she was doing, what she was doing, what kind of things she'd been looking into. And I then started, just by chance, working on the startup of a new television company, which actually didn't last that long, but it was a shopping channel of all things. And we were looking for people to train up as floor managers. And I contacted her, she came along. As far as I know, that was about 18 years ago. As far as I know, she's now a producer who's worked her way up the ladder, but she got in on the ground floor by proving that she really wanted to do this job. I would say, from my point of view, my advice would be look at all different aspects. If you're interested in broadcasting, television, look at all different aspects: sound, vision, makeup, lighting, floor management, production. Have a look at each of them and decide which one you want to go into and take it from there. But as I say, I look for someone who is willing to learn. You know, I've got people working for me now. They're all freelancers because, unlike when I started 150 years ago, you used to go in on the ground floor at the BBC, for example, or ITV or Sky, and work your way up. That doesn't, I'm sure Lauren will correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't really happen very much anymore. Most of television is covered by freelancers. So you need to get your experience on the job, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lauren, let me put that question to you, or that point to you.
Yeah, no, David is right. Generally, the industry is it is a freelance industry. It's for good or bad. It's very different to probably how other industries work, and certainly when you're at school, kind of understanding about the world of work. This one is a bit elusive. It's quite difficult to understand perhaps how everything ties together. But yeah, generally. I would take at least 3/4 of I mean, there are facts and figures, but I've definitely forgotten them today. There are facts and figures about the percentage of freelance industry, but it is predominantly freelance, and that's the same as TV and film. And it will be the production company who come on and will hire sort of the heads of department, and then the heads of department will hire the freelancers. But yeah, they're generally mostly freelance. Sky do, some of the big broadcasters do have more permanent roles. So because we're kind of a commissioning and a broadcaster, there are teams who sit within Sky Studios who commission projects and commission some of the shows that we do, and they are more permanent, and they're also more kind of 9 to 5 roles as well. So they do exist in the industry, they are there. So it really, in terms of kind of lifestyle and what you want to go into as a young person, you know, what kind of work, freelance might not work for you. The hours might not work for you. There are roles that are kind of more 9 to 5 or more based in kind of traditional working styles.
Sure. Okay. And then it's a good segue into a question I was going to ask you, Lauren, that I know lots of people are interested in as well, is do I need to go to university, or what are the various entry points that people can go in? And that's maybe an opportunity to talk about some of the live the vacancies or opportunities that you've got at Sky at the moment.
Yeah, of course. So the answer is it totally depends on you. You know, going to university, yes, it can be really useful, and I've seen it really work for lots of young people. If you need that extra 3 years of space and time to develop your portfolio, particularly in things like editing and directing, maybe more technical roles, even some of the art direction roles, where you just feel like you need more guidance and more support, then brilliant. But you certainly don't have to. There are ways in. You kind of, even when you do finish university, you still kind of have to work your way up from the bottom anyway. So some of the things that we offer at Sky, we have a Content Academy programme, and that is a paid placement year, and you can apply at the end of your year 13 year. It's currently live actually for you if you're going to be 18 by October, and the applications close on the 2nd of April. And the whole point of that programme is to give you kind of rotations, trying out different things, so that by the end you have a bit more of an understanding of the industry and what roles there are and what you might want to go into. So you certainly don't have to have decided by the time you apply, or even by the time you finish the programme. And that runs at Sky Studios in our head office in Osterley, and Sky News and Sky Sports, and there's lots of different roles within those programmes. And then it also runs here on our Elstree Film and Television Studio site. And we have 12 roles here, and 4 of them are graduates and 4 of them are school leaver or college leaver roles. And there's also within those 8, there's kind of 4 that are to do with lighting and rigging as well. So really more kind of specific in lighting and rigging, more technical roles. So that's what we have. But there are lots of other ways into the industry if you're not interested in university and you don't see that as a route for you. So places like Screen Skills offer things like their trainee finder placement, and Screen Skills will kind of help support young people into placements on set as trainees in different departments, depending on what you're interested in. There are other brilliant apprenticeships. I know BBC have lots of great apprenticeships. I know Channel 4 and ITV, all of the big broadcasters have apprenticeship schemes, and there are lots of internships and trainee schemes as well around. So do your research, go and have a good look. Screen Skills is a good place to start. But there are kind of level 4 courses as well. So if you wanted to do like an extra year outside of your college course or your school course, A levels, you could then go do that as well. Hopefully that's answered it. It's a big question, that one.
Yeah, lots of interest in that. So Anthony, looking at some of the questions that have come in and some of them that were submitted beforehand, there's lots of questions about how can I get work experience. We've kind of alluded to this, that for health and safety reasons, it's difficult to get anyone under 18, perhaps on the set of EastEnders, or perhaps following you, David, a question time shot. But particularly there are other experiences that people can gain either at school or in sort of community settings that will set them up.
Absolutely. So as we've already said, under the age of 18, sadly, you can't come on site. If you look at the BBC, as Lauren said, if you look at the BBC early careers on the internet, there's lots there about work experience and opportunities. Again, as Lauren said, there's a production apprenticeship scheme, which is very, very good, which again is live at this moment in time. But what I would recommend while you're at school and college is to get involved in something. This is what we always look for, to get involved in amateur dramatics, a band, doing a little shoot, learning from doing a shoot, and keeping your CV going, having a live CV that you add, and then when you go to an interview, if you're lucky enough to get an interview, you can say exactly what you did. You charged the batteries, you helped pack the kit up, you helped pack it away, you had the card at the end of the shoot to try and ingest it into the machine, and the edit didn't work. Whatever it was, you learn every time. So even though you can't come on site at the moment to a big TV studio, there's lots of things you can do at school and college that will help you. Your ongoing CV is very important at this time.
Sure. Okay. So hopefully there's some really good advice for you. So unfortunately, it's not like just writing a letter and saying, look, I want to do my week's work experience in July. I'm currently in year 11, because it's probably not possible for the reasons that have just been outlined there. But as Anthony's just told you, plenty of opportunities that you can kind of practice this on the, I guess, on the peripheries of the industry. I'm looking at some of the questions that have come in. There's a number of questions here about apprenticeships. So I guess one specifically, I'll read it verbatim, and there's a few similar to this. I've applied for university, but I'm still considering apprenticeships. What are the opportunities for a degree apprenticeship? So Lauren, do you just want to say where we are as an industry with degree apprenticeships?
Yeah, apprenticeships, there are some. There's definitely a couple of degree apprenticeships around. It's definitely worth having a good look. But because of the nature of the industry, there's actually not that many apprenticeships available compared to other industries. And that is because, like we said, a lot of people are freelancers. And if you're a freelancer, you can't then really take on an apprentice because you're not paying the apprenticeship levy. You know, it's very difficult. The industry is made up of lots of small and medium-sized businesses, and often they don't have enough money to be able to support apprentices. And then the nature of production is often locations. You know, you're not in one place. You could be doing 4 weeks here, you could be then doing a 6-month shoot here, and usually apprenticeships, you know, you need to at least kind of 12 months, most are 18 months, and it's very difficult to get your placement, you know, long enough to cover what the apprenticeships require. There are, however, some passport apprenticeships available. So people like Screen Skills have been working on this for a while, where you can do your placement in different areas and in different productions, and they help facilitate and support that. So if you do want to see some apprenticeships, definitely have a look at the big broadcasters, because they are big enough and they have enough money and they pay into the apprenticeship levy enough to be able to support you. So I know at Sky we do a marketing apprenticeship, we do a finance one, there's about 4 different degree apprenticeships, but they're more in our business and technology areas at the moment. And then definitely, yeah, have a look at Screen Skills, because they do have a couple of different apprenticeships on there. But this is why kind of internships and traineeships and shorter courses there's more availability of those, because of the slightly difficult nature of apprenticeships. So there's not an easy answer to that one again, I'm sorry.
Sure, okay. If you do want to follow up on anything that Lauren's just said, then if you want to know any specific details, do put your questions in and we'll try and answer those for you. Let me ask some of the other questions that have come in. So, a question for David. I know he worked for the BBC for 23 years, but now works freelance. So what are the differences between the freelance work and the BBC? So, I mean, I guess in general, David, just talk us through some of those sort of key differences between being freelance and being contracted to someone.
Well, the main difference between being staff and being freelance, obviously, is security. You know, as a member of staff at the BBC, I worked in news and current affairs. I knew on the 15th of each month there'd be money put into my bank, come what may. As a freelancer, you're always looking for the next job. You're always hoping that the job you have got continues, and you're also negotiating your own fee. It's not a set wage, so especially when you start off, you know, when I first went freelance, even though I had a lot of experience as a floor manager, I had some companies come to me and say, right, well, yeah, we want to use you, and we think that we've got a big project coming up, but on this small one, would you be willing to come along for nothing and just prove yourself? And in my naivety, I did it a couple of times. Nothing ever came of it. The program, it was actually a couple of adverts I did as well, went out on air. The company made all the money out of it. I never got paid. Thankfully, I was sort of established by then. I wasn't young, so I had some money behind me and I could afford to do that. But don't go into this business thinking, oh, it's TV, it's show business, I'm going to be driving around in my Rolls Royce by next week. It doesn't happen. Takes at least a month. No. That is one of the main differences, if you like, one of the bad differences, that the security isn't there as a freelancer. The good thing is variety. When I worked for the BBC, I worked for news. So I worked on news programs, which I found interesting because I've always been interested in politics and current affairs. Since becoming freelancer, I've worked on all manner of things, as I say, from Question Time, which is a political program, to FA Cup final, football, many sports. I don't think there's a single sport I haven't worked on that I can think of. Some of which I enjoy, some of which I'm not over keen on, but the work is there, so I do it. But variety is the good thing, lack of security is the bad thing.
And just to pick up on what David said, so EastEnders film every day, but we've also provided facilities for Love Island just recently, which may resonate with some of you, and that's been on a Sunday. It's 1 day a week. So if you were working on Love Island in the studio, it's 1 day a week. So you've got to find something to do the other days. Otherwise, you're only being paid for 1 day. And that's a big problem, isn't it, David? To try and fill up the week with things.
But people do, I think people do go into this, especially I have to say, young people who don't have the experience of the work. They only see what they think they see. I actually know a couple of people who work on Love Island. They work on the entire series, and I think at the moment they're in South Africa. I know very little about Love Island, I'm afraid, but they are working 7 days a week on that program. So they've got the other side of it to what you're seeing, one day a week, which isn't going to keep anyone going.
And when a show is in the studio, we'll call that show QI, which is a quiz show. That's in one of our studios in central London at the moment. They're doing their Christmas show next week. So they tend to do get the set in the studio, then do the whole series in one go, and then they go away again. So again, it's very intense for a few days, and then it's all over. And they could record a whole year's worth. So it's Christmas next week, our first Christmas show of the year.
Wow. What's that, March the 23rd, 9 months in advance. David, you spoke about salaries, or in fact that you are, or more pertinently, not driving around in Rolls Royces and got your yachts off the Bahamas. But a sensible question that's come in here: what is the average income in the film industry? Let me ask Lauren that question, because you must have been asked that question many times as a teacher and probably given lots of answers. So how would you answer that?
Yeah, again, it totally depends on the role and the department, and then your experience. If you're coming in entry level, if you're a freelancer, you'll have what's called a daily rate, and if you're on a daily, you might be, depending again on what, but average entry level could be 100, 150. But the rate cards change all the time, and as a freelancer you'll use things like unions to help support you and understand kind of what the different daily rates might be. So you might use something like BEC2, which is one of the kind of biggest unions, and they have like a kind of agreed set rates for a daily rate. But I know, when you're very experienced and you've had 20 years, 25 years in the industry, I know a key grip who was on something like £450 per day, roughly. So it really just depends on the role and your experience. But as you kind of go up the grades, obviously the aim is that your rate increases as your experience, because you have that experience, you have all of that knowledge.
I'm not sure about actual entry rates, but if you go onto the BBC website, early careers, you can find what you will be paid for one of those placements, one of those year 18-month internships, but you can find that there.
Sure, okay, that's quite transparent then, and that's good information to look at. Lauren, again, I'm going to come to you first of all, this one. What are the pros and cons of each of the opportunities, as some universities have good networks in the industry? So I suppose we would want to plug our home university, University of Hertfordshire, who I know have got a number of very, very good courses, and presumably because of their proximity to where you guys are, they've probably got some really good links there. Are there universities that are sort of notorious for sort of churning out some really good students who go on to achieve really good destinations?
Yeah, there are a number. Uni of Hearts actually has really incredible animation courses and film courses, and they are really good. If you look at some of the kind of university rankings, and when you're looking for those, I wouldn't look at the overall university ranking, look at the course rankings and see where that is, because each university will have a variety of kind of standards in their university. So yeah, that's really good. But Ravensbourne, I know, and has worked with Ravensbourne, they're really brilliant, really great industry university. A lot of my ex-students went to University of Arts London, Falmouth, Bournemouth. Yeah, there are a number out there. The key thing is actually more about what's going to work for you. So is the course the right course? Is it got the right level of practical and theoretical for you? Are the modules that you're going to study, really look at the detail. Do they do the right modules for you? And then also you've got to think about maybe the industry surrounding that university. Is that university in a really good place? Like, is it in one of the kind of key hubs? Is it in places like Salford or Bristol and Wales, or if it's near London, that's really useful as well. Does it have a good kind of network around it that then you might be able to tap into in summer if you wanted to get kind of daily work or runner work that you then you can use that to help you. So there's some things to think about there with university.
Okay, and this one offers some similar lines. Would going to film school be useful, or would it be better to go straight into the industry and gain experience? So Anthony, what do you think about that?
I think film school is very useful. I think if you want to be a camera person, reading The Sun, the Mail is very good. As David knows, you need to know who the politicians are on question time, so you need to know who the people are. So if you turned up at a sports arena and you were on a camera or with somebody who was on a camera, you could say, it's David Beckham, or you need to be able to point these people out. You can't be told by somebody who the famous people are. So it's quite good to follow what's going on in current affairs, what's going on the red tops, that kind of thing. But it's opportunities, it's finding those opportunities. And as Lauren said, if you go to a good university, you've then got to convert that into real experience. And of course, once you're over 18, we do take people on over 18 for work experience.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to try and rattle through these questions because we're sort of getting to 5:30, and David, as a freelancer, will know the importance of being on the hour here. This is one for Lauren. What are the gaps in the industry? Lauren mentioned about grips, for instance. Are there any other significant demands or employment shortages? I think that's a fantastic question, by the way.
Great question, really good. Yeah, there are a number, and good places to look are places like Screen Skills, who do a lot of research into this, and the BFI as well, the British Film Institute, do lots of research into the skills shortages. So if you do want to know specific roles, do have a look at them. The ones I can rattle off really quickly, I think people like location managers, who literally go and travel all over the country, all over the world to find locations for productions. Production managers, production secretaries, accountants. Grip is a really key area. Hair and makeup artists, but also who can do more hair and makeup for diverse talent. That's really key. Art department, so set construction, those kind of areas. But generally there are kind of shortages all over the industry. So and a lot of them are in mid-level roles as well. So that might not help you yet. But we need lots of people to enter the industry who then will release the sort of people to climb up the ladder so that they can then become people like the sort of third assistant directors or second assistant directors. So yeah, there are lots of shortages. It's definitely worth having a little look on the Screen Skills website for more information there.
And we have an issue with people who can cut hair, funnily enough, who can cut hair to a period piece. So cutting hair is another big thing that we have issues with.
Okay. David, how easy is it for you to find floor managers?
Yeah, I don't have any problems finding floor managers. At times, I need more than others. One of the projects I have is I supply the floor managers for the world feed for the FA Cup. So for the third round of the FA Cup, when there were 32 matches, I quite often need 32 floor managers. There are a lot of people out there who think they can floor manage. I started advertising some years ago on a website called Mandy, which is really good. It offers paid jobs, it offers unpaid jobs. So I put an advert on there saying I was looking for floor managers. I was starting my company and I needed some experienced floor managers. I had some people contacting me who were experienced floor managers. I had others who were experienced floor managers in Pizza Express, because Pizza Express call their staff floor managers. And these people were convinced that because they liked football and because they worked as a floor manager in Pizza Express, they were the one for me. The difficult thing is finding a floor manager who can floor manage and not someone who thinks they can. So I think, going back to what Lauren was saying before, and Anthony, going to somewhere like Ravensbourne, going to other, I think there's one called UCFB or UFCB, which is based at Wembley. These are the places to go to get experience, and they will also have contacts like myself, like Anthony, like Lauren, who they will come to us and say, look, I've got this really good guy who wants to be a floor manager. Can he trail you on a job? And quite often they will be able to. And if I think they're any good, even if they don't have experience, I will train them up. I've got a few people who work for me now who are, I think, amongst the best floor managers I've ever worked with. And they have started from scratch. They have taken notice. They've listened to people in the profession. When I was training at the BBC, the first floor manager that I trailed, I knew very little about the job, and he gave me the best advice I think I've ever heard. He said that I will learn some things from him, and the following week I'll trail another floor manager, learn some things from them, and put those things together, and with some experience myself, learn some things for me. And by putting all of those bits together, it will make me a good floor manager, because I'll take the little bits out of everyone that are helpful. So I would say that that's a really good way to go about it, to listen, to learn, to be willing to learn, to be willing to be part of a team, and to put in the work.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's great advice that transcends not just this industry, perhaps all industries, about learning from others and taking on board that once you're in, that's not it. Every day's a school day, is the saying, isn't it? We always learn something. Right, a couple more questions that have come in, then we'll wrap up. David mentioned South Africa. What are the points of industry where travelling is a strong part of it, as I know a lot of people want to travel? Lauren, you're just talking about a location manager. That sounds fantastic, but are there many programs where they travel by nature and therefore they take all their staff out with them?
Oh, you're asking me that one.
Yes.
Yeah, it totally depends. It totally depends on the production. Some production companies will take staff from the UK out, and then it depends on the industry and where they're going. You know, if there's lots of local freelancers who they can rely on, they might use them as well, and that often is useful because they'll have local knowledge, particularly when they are trying to find suppliers or work with what's existing. But yeah, locations manager is a really good one if you want to travel. Yeah, you get to go all over the place and find really interesting, obscure locations that don't usually get seen. So yeah, that's a good one.
Sure.
And it's probably worth saying that our location managers on EastEnders find locations within a mile or two of Boreham Wood. So I've been to some amazing places such as High Cannons. Look it up on the internet. It's very close to Boreham Wood. Beautiful house and grounds where lots of films have been done.
Yeah, now well, being relatively local, and anyone else watching this from Hertfordshire as well will recognise some of the places that EastEnders is shot. Actually, like you say, it probably is all pretty close to Boreham Wood. Final question then. It's asked to Lauren, but I'm actually going to go to Anthony first of all on this one. And it's, how can we address the gender pay gap in TV careers? He's thanking me for going to him first, isn't he? Yeah. Giving Lauren a bit more thinking time on it, because I know that I've thrown a couple of curveballs at her already.
I don't know how to answer that. I really don't know how to answer that. The only thing I will say is look on BBC Early Careers on the website, and also on Twitter. All BBC roles, including ours at StudioWorks, are all offered on BBC Get In on Twitter. But the key is to have your CV completely ready, because again, as Lauren said, when the windows for these applications open, it's not open for very long. The BBC often only open for a few days, maybe a week. So have your CV current and have it all ready to pop in to email off the moment the application window opens. How we address the pay gap, I don't know. I honestly don't know how to answer that one, Gareth. I'm so sorry.
Okay, David, you.
Yeah, I would say that in a lot of television roles, there is no gender pay gap. There's an experience pay gap. You can't come in on your first day and expect to earn the same as someone who's been doing the job for 20 years. However, I know that floor managers that I hire, doesn't matter whether they're male, female, they earn exactly the same wage. Camera operators I work with, other floor managers I work with, all production staff, doesn't matter what their race, colour, creed or gender, they earn the same.
Sure. And then Lauren, I've given you a bit of time there, but if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, this is a massive issue in lots of industries. I think one of the first things is being really honest and open and visible and transparent as much as you can be. and then lots of work on research and access schemes. So really making sure that we're promoting women, particularly in film and TV, and particularly in technical roles, and probably roles that are where there has been a kind of gender imbalance. I think that's really key. A lot of my work is going into schools and really promoting those kind of roles and those opportunities to girls. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing. Definitely the industry are looking into this. There's lots of research into this, and there's also charities as well that are supporting this. So you've got charity called Women in Film and TV, and they have awards every year. They do lots of fundraising, and they also do lots of mentorship for women, and they do a ton of research on this as well. If you do want to know a bit more about that, if you go to their website, there's lots of resources and signposting to other places, other companies and things that they're doing. But a lot of what companies are doing are kind of pledging what their targets or aims are, and I think that can be really useful as well, because then you've got at least a goal to work towards, and a lot of companies are doing that within the industry.
I've had time now, Gareth, and David's quite right. We pay the same. Certainly studios, we pay the same for the role. It doesn't matter who you are. David, you're quite right with your answer, as you were, Lauren.
Sure. Well, hopefully between the three of you, you've tackled that answer. You tackled that answer effectively. Just on your screen at the moment, we are just wrapping up now. We've mentioned Screen Skills on a number of occasions already. It's a really good website. It's a really good resource. If you want to find out a little bit more about careers in this field, then do have a look at their website. You can access it via that QR code on the screen. Equally, Lauren referenced Elstree Screen Arts Academy based in Elstree. It's a school you can go there as soon as year 10. You can also start at year 12 or perhaps beyond that as well for some very sort of specific vocational courses. You can also do your sort of English and maths and your more traditional subjects there at the same time. Would also recommend, if this is something you're thinking about, do have a look at your local college. So whether that's Herts Regional College, North Herts College, Oaklands or West Herts College, they will all offer some courses that will have some relation to film and TV production. So have a look at those. Just want to ask you, those of you that are watching this live, just before we wrap up, if there's any feedback you've got about this webinar, anything that you found particularly useful or any particular advice or guidance, if you could just drop it into those questions, that's really useful for us to have that feedback. And we do like to work on any feedback that you do give us. So finally, just before I ask my panelists just to wrap up, this webinar has been recorded. All of our webinars that we record on this channel are available to look at through that QR code you can see here. So do tell your family and friends about it. We've done about 60 of these over the last few years, so there will be something for everyone. Do follow us on HOP as well. Have a look at our social media channels. So Lauren, just in conclusion, what would you say to a 15-year-old who wants to go into TV production? Now, I'm going to come to you first with this one this time. No
pressure. Yeah, I mean, some of the tips we've given you, do your research, really go and look into things like Screen Skills. There is lots of research out there about the different types of roles to get into. Do things you enjoy, find things that you really enjoy. You never know where that's going to lead you, and you don't have to have planned your whole career. Just think about what your next steps are.
Okay, thank you. And David, unless there's something you want to add to that one, I will probably wrap up there.
No, not at all. That's lovely. I think Lauren put it succinctly.
She did, yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, plenty of your staff are watching this webinar right now. So, firstly, thank you to those of you that have been part of the webinar. You've perhaps even submitted questions. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. But more particularly, thank you to my three wonderful panelists today. So to David, to Anthony, and Laura, thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing your experiences with us today. It's been really invaluable. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everybody.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's great. Thank you.